The Knitters' Walk is often talked about in the Rosses area, with many stories told of the adventures and misadventures of women from all over the Rosses as they walked every fortnight to the town of Glenties with their knitting in the second half of the 19th century. In 1893, Glenties was described as the great emporium of the home industry and stocking manufacture in Donegal by William Harkin, writing in a publication called Scenery and Antiquities of Northwest Donegal. Very enterprising woolen goods merchants in Glenties at that time held lucrative contracts to supply hose and half-hose, that's socks and stockings, to the British Army. They relied on the cottage knitting industry for their workforce, and all over the Rosses and on its coastal islands, women were knitting for the men in Glenties. Once every fortnight, the women left their homes early to make the journey to Glenties. The island women would leave their homes at first light by boat to come to the mainland. It was a long walk in all weather, summer and winter. They carried with them 24 pairs of newly knitted socks and a bottle of tea and some homemade bread to sustain them on their journey. Along the route, neighbourly householders would heat the tea for them or make them a fresh cup. To get to Glenties from the Rosses, the women had to cross the Gibara estuary. There was no bridge at Litchamica Ward until 1893, so they headed for the crossing ford at Ballinaccarrick, where they waded across at low tide with their knitting held aloft. There was a ferry crossing at Ballinaccarrick, but from the small income the women were earning, they could not afford to pay any of it to the ferryman. They made use of the long rope or chain that went across the estuary to guide the ferry over and back, to pull themselves along and to steady their step. The women carried on to Glenties, where they concluded their business and collected the wool for the next fortnight's knitting. In 1880, James Tooke, in a work entitled A Visit to Donegal, recorded that the women were receiving 1 shilling per dozen pairs of socks. Their business in Glenties concluded, they made their way back to the estuary. They were very much at the mercy of the tide and had to cross back over the estuary before the tide came fully in. They made their way back to their homes, and for the next fortnight, every spare minute they had was spent knitting. Their hands were never idle. A fortnight later, they would once again leave their homes early with their knitting, and the Knitters' Walk to Glenties would begin all over again.